Fanjing in Guizhou province is one of China's many famous mountains. It's well known for its associations with Buddhism and for its natural wonders. Among the rarest species of flora and fauna found on Fanjing Mountain are Guizhou golden monkeys, giant salamanders, and China's dove trees.
In southwest China, there is a famous Buddhist mountain, the Fanjing Mountain. As early as during the Song Dynasty, more than 1,000 years ago, people began to build Buddhist temples on the mountain. Until the middle of the Ming Dynasty, there were more than 100 Buddhist temples here. The Huguo Temple, built in the late 16th century, is the largest temple on the mountain, whose construction was ordered by an emperor. Fanjing Mountain can be compared to a biological treasure house. As early as in the 1980s, it became a member of the UN Human and Biosphere Protection Organization. Many ancient and precious species still exist here, such as the Guizhou golden monkeys, giant salamanders, firs, and Chinese dove trees, among others. The first time we got to see the Fanjing Mountain was at its foot by the Management Bureau of the Protection Zone. The Deputy Director of the Management Zone, Yang Chuandong, has been working with the organization for nearly 3 decades. He says Fanjing Mountain boasts 19 kinds of National Grade 1 and Grade 2 protection animals, as well as 21 types of rare plants. The most famous are the Guizhou golden monkeys and the Chinese dove trees. Chinese dove trees in the circle of plants are just like pandas among animals. In 1869, a French biologist, Jean-Pierre David, found the plant in China. The flower of the plant is just like a white dove. When he took the plant back to France, it caused a stir across Europe. At that time, people there had only seen flowers of the Chinese dove trees through fossils. They didn't know how the real plant or its flowers looked like. Some imperial palaces and castles began to introduce the plant. Every year, late in April, on the streets of Geneva, in the imperial gardens in France, and in the White House in the United States, there will be groups of doves flying over the trees. Europeans then called the flowers of these plants Chinese dove flowers. A bunch of pearl-like bubbles appear on the surface of a clear brook. Yang Chuandong says that those are traces of giant salamanders swimming in the brook. Among all amphibians, giant salamanders enjoy the longest lifetime. If fed by human beings, a giant salamander can live for as many as 130 years. The sound made by giant salamanders is pretty much like a baby crying. In fact, a giant salamander is not really a fish. It's much like a frog who breathes depending on his lungs. Therefore, if you see some bubbles on the water surface, you can find a giant salamander underneath. The giant salamanders cannot chew. They swallow their food. Once they have some food, they could be cut off from food for as long as 2 to 3 years. During the day, giant salamanders usually hide at the bottom of the water surface. They go out at night. That's why it's hard to find the creatures. On the mountain, where the altitude reaches 1,800 meters, live the golden monkeys. Golden monkeys on Fanjing Mountain are called the Guizhou golden monkeys. Currently, there are only around 800 such animals existing around the world. They all live on Fanjing Mountain. They were listed as a species on the verge of extinction. 34 years after the Chinese dove trees were brought to Europe, another missionary from Europe accidentally bought a piece of golden monkey fur in southwest China's Sichuan province. After taking it back to Europe, people found this was a new type of species. This inspired zoologists' passion to find golden monkeys in China. But this time around, the Europeans were not so lucky. Several decades passed, and they couldn't even catch a glimpse of the golden monkey. Walking ahead, we find that the density of plants has become higher. You can see cherry trees everywhere. Yang Chendong says the leaves of these trees are a favorite with the golden monkeys.
看见没有？是这个搬下来的痕迹啊，它不是自己掉下来的。那这个的话，你说谁会这么讨厌？这就是金丝猴，这是明显的咬痕，看见没有啊？这种半月牙形的那个嘴唇形状，非常明显吧？啊，这些地方，这都是它咬过的，看见没有？咬了，它扯下来，吃了几口，咬了扔了，再去撇子。
这个洞是不是猴子咬的？
金丝猴吃食物啊，它一定是把它扯下来吃，啊，它是这么扯下来吃，它不会这么够着吃，很少这么够着吃。如果这个嫩叶啊，嫩叶的时候，它是这样，把它的话，整个走下来吃，啊，走这么一把来吃。嫩枝的话，它会把它拎断来吃，啊，所以有时候的话。这个金丝猴的话，你发现的时候，你看它掉在下面的叶子和这个枝条啊，你就可以发现的。
Studying the pieces of leaves lying on the ground, Yang Yeqing says the leaves were picked in the morning, meaning a number of golden monkeys may have been here just a dozen of hours ago. They can easily escape this vast and dense forest, leaving behind those fallen leaves. Incidentally, we also find a very strange white flower.
这个花的名字的话叫头状四照花，它这个果实成熟的果实的话和那个荔枝非常相像，但它不是这么像荔枝剥了壳吃，而就直接这么吃，非常香甜，猴子特别喜欢吃。
No wonder golden monkeys frequent the place. They love these white flowers too. Here the altitude is more than 2,000 meters. With the rise in altitude, the temperature has fallen. Many broad leaves cannot stand cold weather, hence their number has fallen too. In humid, foggy weather, our photography team saw several junipers.
这就是梵净山冷杉的这一片，下面都是，这个种是1982年刚刚发表的一个新种，就是梵净山，叫梵净山冷杉。梵净山只有梵净山有，就是梵净山的特有种，它也是个国家一级保护植物。它这个也非常古老，和那个珙桐啊、金丝猴啊是同一个时代的，也是一个核化石，几百万年了，
这个已经有几百万年了。
几百万年了，因为它是那个所以它这个的发现对研究那个古气候、古植物的那个趋势是一个非常重要的一个作证。
Walking in the heavy foggy weather, several members of our team suddenly got very excited. They shouted, "Look, it's the Golden Peak." Looking into the distance, the peak of the mountain seems like a giant standing high in the clouds. The peak is unique. It's like a huge pillar erect on the top of Fanjing mountain. The upper part is split into two. In between them, there's a stone bridge linking them. Visitors coming to Fanjing Mountain are usually brave enough to climb up to the peak to enjoy the surrounding beautiful scenery. At the foot of the Golden Peak, there are several giant stones in strange shapes. This one is like a giant mushroom. It's also like a boot that officials in ancient times used to wear for their daily morning meetings in the imperial palace. This stone has become a symbol of Fanjing Mountain. Tourists do not leave without taking a picture here. We walk down the mountain on a path in the back. The density of plants becomes higher again. On both sides of the path, red rhododendrons bloom. An old tree with many red ropes hanging on it catches our attention. It's a very strange tree.
这个现象呢，是一个附生现象到梵净山呢很普遍从这一棵树子就能够反映出来梵净山的这个空气湿度这个空气环境非常好，它适应各种树子的这种生长和发育。只要一颗种子随便丢到哪里，它都能够发芽生。
Several different types of branches grow on a same tree. It's just like a small forest on a single tree. The wind gets stronger and stronger on the mountain. How can the flowers on the large Chinese dove trees survive the strong wind?
今天这个风还是很大的，这个大你看有可能这个啊，就看看下大雨了。如果又是遇大风，又是下大雨，那么这个花肯定会吹掉。
The number of flowers on the ground increases. Naturally, the flowers on the trees get lesser and lesser. We can see a vast area of green covered by Chinese dove trees. But we cannot see a real flower. Then we hear Yang Chendong calling out to us. Everyone runs over to him. We finally get to see numerous white flowers dancing over a Chinese dove tree. These are the so-called dove flowers. At this moment, we forget all about the exhaustion we have felt after climbing the mountain on foot for several days. What's in our minds is all those beautiful dove flowers dancing in the wind. The flowers demonstrate their strong vitality. In the unique natural environment on Fanjing Mountain, the high and strong Chinese dove trees enjoy flourishing leaves. Every year, when spring comes, beautiful flowers bloom here. This was the moment when we felt it was worthwhile to travel all the way up here.